Welcome to this 10 Minutes for Democracy policy stream. Now, this policy stream has to do with two California bills that are currently in the California State Senate, SB 222 and SB 223. Now, this is my first try at doing a policy stream. I want to do these for some state laws, but especially a bunch of national laws that are in the news. But I said, let me start and do a little practice starting out with these and with these smaller bill, with something smaller, something that's more niche, and just see how it goes. I'm just wearing my glasses because I'll be reading off screens a bit. And once I'm done with this, I'm going to put chapters in it so that you can hop through it if I have any lulls and stuff, so that people can hop through and get to the parts that they care about. Because this is more about informing people than anything else. I'm not worried about watch time, that kind of stuff. I don't want to rush, but I also don't want to take too long. So I'm just going to let it flow naturally, kind of see what happens. Now, the reason why I'm doing this policy stream about these two bills is because I got this flyer in the mail, I think either yesterday or today. Now on the front, it's got two nice little girls, one black, one white. Just put it up here so you can see it. There you go. I got to look in the screen. And they're drinking water that's hopefully clean. And it says 1.6 million California households are at risk at having their water shut off. So, and then on the other side, it's got a picture of my state senator, Anthony Portantino, who I recently voted to go back into office this time for another term here. And there's actually a lot of his pictures. He's not gray, but I think this is a recent picture. He's a Democrat, not particularly my favorite state senator, but he tends to be pretty reasonable on positions, just kind of establishment. He gets a lot of endorsements, that kind of stuff. One of those guys that I think is fine, but I kind of wish he was replaced by some fresh blood that I also agree with, but who are younger, maybe a little more chomping at the bit to make a difference in the world and not just accepting of how things are, which a lot of long-term incumbents are. So what it says is, tell Senator Portantino, help prevent water shutoffs. It points out there's a problem. 500,000 Californians had their water shut off in 2019. COVID-19 made it worse. Californians have $1 billion in water debt, which is implied is people that Californians owe $1 billion collectively on their water bills. And then the solution, they say, are these two bills, SB 222 and SB 223. Those bills would, according to this, help low-income individuals pay their water bills. Now, I have up on the screen right now, I'm pointing the wrong way because my screen's over here, but this screen's over here. Says this is paid for by the NRDC. The NRDC, this is their website. The NRDC is the National Resource Defense Council. It's a large organization. I pulled up their finances. They're pretty transparent. They have their finances on a link on this screen. It says, look at it for fiscal year 20 audited financial statement. So I looked at it. I'm not going to go through this whole thing, obviously, but just a quick highlight. It's a big organization. They've got, looks like fiscal year ending June 2020, they got $133 million in donations. They have grants of $52 million. So this is several $100 million this organization has. And I looked at like who they hire. They have scientists. They have people that are policy people. They've got a lot of different people, doing things when it comes to addressing issues of natural resources. So I thought, okay, that's interesting. I'm not going to go deep dive into them. I just want to point out who sent this because that's important to know. That's the first thing you should always check when you see these things is who's responsible for it. Now, the first thing I wondered is Senator Portantino particularly against these two bills? I did a Google search. I couldn't find anything. And once I looked at the finances for the NRDC, it looks like NRDC, it looks like they don't have they have plenty of money and they may be sending these to every state senator. As we'll see in a few minutes, this bill actually is still in committee, which I'll explain in a moment, but it's got a long ways to go. So it's not going to be something that goes up for a vote in a few weeks. They're trying to kind of head this off, get momentum behind it so that when it gets to the floor of the full California Senate, it'll pass. And if it passes the California Senate, it'll probably pass the California House. So I think that's their plan. It's still it has to go through several committees. It's been through a few. So let's go into that. So let's look at the bills next. So I have both bill texts pulled up. Now, SB 222 is a lot simpler. And this is not, you know what I'm doing? I'm going to zoom myself down and make this bigger. So let me do that. Oh, no, that's all the way big. There we go. All right. So let me scroll this. So it looks like mainly two components to it. So the way they do this is they have a paragraph explaining the relevant existing law, and then they pop in and talk about the new law and how it changes. So it talks about there's a California State Water Board, State Water Resources Control Board that administers policy relating to drinking water to protect public health. So what SB 222 does is it establishes a water rate assistance fund in the state treasury to help provide water affordability assistance. So this is in particular for low-income individuals, California residents that are having trouble with their water bill, trying to establish a fund to help them. Pretty straightforward. And it goes into detail. I don't want to go into much. So again, we're just trying to get an idea of the law. Don't want to try to parse. This one's not a very complicated one. The other one's a little more complicated, and we're going to spend more time on that. That's essentially what this one does. We're talking about you got to get appropriation by the legislature. There's all kind of details about this, but that's the essence of it. Help low-cost people be able to keep their water on. And that's a critical thing, because the thing about it is we've commoditized to some extent water. And in some ways, we feel the need to necessarily do that because you don't want people using water unnecessarily. So part of the idea is make people pay for water in order to keep them from wasting it and keep them overusing it, because we have a lot of citizens in California. Despite the census, we're losing one California federal representative. We still got plenty of people. We got plenty of water. Plenty of water need. So we want to make sure people are trying to not overdo it. And in our DC website, they have stuff about actually going down and trying to local fights, I can't find it. They had something about like how to use less water and some things like that as members of the community to try to prevent using too much water. But having said that, water is kind of something that everybody needs and should have. We really shouldn't have to not deny people water that they need to bathe in, that they need for water. That's kind of one of those things that we're a country that is as wealthy as it is. Things like having a roof over your head, having water to drink and water to bathe in, and those types of things should be available to everybody. So our system of pricing in order to have the outcomes that we want regarding the use of water shouldn't then cause us to take water away from people, so that we have people and children that don't have water to bathe in and water to drink and to use for food preparation. We don't really want that outcome. We're too wealthy of a country and a state. We're actually doing pretty well now in terms of our budget to need to do that. And so what this and the other bill are doing is trying to prevent that eventuality from happening. We don't really want anybody having their water cut off. So that statement, if it's true here of, 500,000 Californians having their water turned off, that number should be zero. There shouldn't be any Californians having their water actually turned off. We should be paying our bills, but if we can show that they're in poverty and their money is stressed and that's why they can't pay their bill, I think that's a good reason not for it to be turned off. So that's SB 222. 223, it's a little more complicated. In this one, it's hard to condense it down to something really simple, but the couple basic aspects to it. So one is that there's an existing law that was passed actually I'm not to mention that. So both of these are introduced by a state senator named Dodd. In this case, the co-authors were Gonzalez and Weiner, I'm not sure which. In this case, Gonzalez and Weiner. So both of them. There are also some additional co-authors here, Bloom, Rivas. So those assembly members. So there's some assembly members who also are saying we're going to introduce this in the state assembly. So they have it in both houses in that case. So, but Dodd actually passed another bill that established something. I believe it's in this paragraph. So existing law requires urban and community water centers to have written policy on discontinuation of residential services for non-payment. And what SB 223 does is that it adds something else called, in this paragraph, a very small community water system, defined as a public water system that supplies water to 200 or fewer service connection. So it's kind of a loophole. Looks like they're trying to fill and saying that previous bill, existing law passed in 2018, should apply to this other should apply to residents for water systems for smaller groups of people. So it seems like there's some loophole that it's not covering certain people, and want that existing law that's helping to keep people from having the water turned off and establish regulations in terms of, there's something up here in the first paragraph about requiring that you have to be delinquent for at least 60 days. That law being applied to everybody in California and not missing anyone. That looks like one of the pieces of SB 223, but there's more. So it also revises the conditions under which urban and community water systems and very small community systems are prohibited from discontinuing residential service for non-payment. It would prohibit these systems from discontinuing during a state or local emergency, like a pandemic. Now, in this case, let me stop here and say this. Governor Newsom separately has stopped any services from being cut off using a governor's fiat. I don't know what the term for it is. Basically, his powers as governor to do that. But what this tries to do is codify a process so that he wouldn't even have to do that. That the law itself would say you can't, because if he declares an emergency, then your water can't get cut off, which seems to make sense. He also, they extend the delinquency time to 90 days rather than 60. That's there. And then it also, now since existing law requires urban and community water system to impose specified fees for reconnection with a household income below 200% of the poverty line, this bill instead requires urban and community water systems and very small community water systems, again, adding in that piece, to waive fees for discontinuation and reconnection of service for those customers. So they're saying essentially, if that happens, don't make it harder for them to turn it back on by having fees and reconnection, disconnection fees they have to pay on top of paying whatever bills they have to pay to get their water turned back on. So that's kind of the gist of this. There's also more issues about what the powers of that state water board and information reporting, so they can keep track of what's going on and the issues that come up. So that's the gist of it. And both of these laws seem reasonable. Now, I did Google it, and I did find one particular group that testified. This is the ACWA staff member that testified in opposition to SB 222 and 223. Of course, who is the ACWA? Well, glad you asked. The ACWA is the Association of California Water Agencies. It's a lobbying organization. This actually is opensecrets.org. This actually is their federal aspect. So they actually lobby the federal government. And there's actually a bill I found here called HR 1764. That's a national bill that I thought was kind of interesting. That actually is bipartisan, but it's kind of questionable. So I may do that one for a different policy stream. But they actually do lobby. It looks like they have 3 lobbyists in their employ that they pay a total of $420,000 a year. I think that's here. Lobbyists. Here you go. So click on this. I can see it. You can see David L. Reynolds, Abby Schneider, and Jessica Tanner. It looks like those are the 3 lobbyists that they are paying a total, unless they're paying all 3 of them $420K for a total of 1.something million. But I don't think so. Not if the total number. It says number of revolvers. What does that mean? Revolving door, new jobs. Oh, so one of them actually worked in the government before. So that's why I call him a revolver. Interesting. So it says total 420. So it looks like it's divvied up somehow between those 3 people. Anyway, so that's who was testifying. Now, I looked at these before, and their basic concerns were a couple things. SB 222, they mostly didn't. They didn't have a huge problem with it. They pointed out that they suggested alternatives, that things that Governor Newsom could do and legislature could do, kind of like, hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And he didn't necessarily like some of the data they were collecting, it looks like. And they wanted to lower the scope of it. It doesn't seem like, I'm going back to the bill, it seems like they just are worried about, it looks like it's nitpicking. Like they don't fundamentally, if you look back at it, it doesn't really fundamentally oppose it. And it passed 8-1 out of that committee. And as of this date, it was going to be seen by the Environmental Committee next. But if I go back, oh, that's what I meant to do. So for SB 222, what's the status of it now? So you go up here and you look at here, you can look at history. This is what happens in the bill. So it did go to that committee, passed and amended, ayes, yes, and they, so it voted. See, this doesn't tell you which committees. Let's go to votes. That's easier sometimes. Okay, so location is the Energy, Utilities, and Communications Group. That voted 11-2, it passed out of that. Then it went to the Environmental Quality. That passed 5-2, and that passed, and then it got re-referred to the Appropriations Committee. So that's where it is now. If you go to history now, it'll say read second, that's the appropriation. So it's sitting in appropriations as of the 3rd of May. For 223, go to votes, starting community utility, same kind of path, same votes. So no defectors, nothing really different. 11-2, 11-2. So that's the status of them right now. Now the ACWA did have more to say about 223. They didn't like SB 998, Dodd's bill from 2018 that 223 modifies and adds to. They don't like the one-size-fits-all statewide water shutoff law. And they point out that Governor Newsom's executive order, that was the word I was looking for, executive order prohibiting shutdowns has suspended the implementation of 998. But that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with 998. They're just saying, hey, maybe we should delay and wait until that one's fully implemented before we modify it. And they said, oh, we shouldn't modify 998. That's here as premature. But it seems to me that they're filling a gap in the law, that basically the law had an error in it that they're fixing. So I don't know if I buy that in terms of just expanding the scope. If it is statewide, shouldn't it cover every agency in the state? Why is leaving a loophole a good idea? Doesn't seem to make sense. So that's that. And then the last thing is anything else here. So they talk about the executive order. Oh, yeah. So they're saying prioritizing the use of non-rate revenue for customer debt forgiveness over other uses. So they're talking about how it prioritizes money to be used in a certain way. And they're saying that would prevent other issues. And they basically trying to put other things in front of it to like take the bullet. So they, oh, if you do this, there might be less money for safe drinking water or infrastructure repairs. But again, if we're talking about everybody being able to keep their water on, I think that's a pretty high ethical or moral priority in any kind of water system. So I don't know if that gambit they're going for there, trying to kind of put these bodies out there in the way and say, oh, what about these things will work in this case? I think complete access to water is pretty important from a moral or ethical standpoint. So that's the two bills. That's the SB 222 and SB 223. I had one viewer in here most of the time. I appreciate you checking this out. It's a little rough. I've only been doing streaming for about a month or two, just learning it. I've got a bunch of videos on my channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, or not just you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, I can't tell. But I got a bunch of the videos. I've written some, done stuff like that. But I'm moving towards this because a lot of videos that have done the best for me were ones where I went into laws, and in that case, California propositions. So I want to kind of go back into that, but on a federal level, talk about the For the People Act, HR 1, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act bill. Those are some of the ones I want to do in the near future to kind of get information, have my take on those out there. But I want to kind of get comfortable doing this, and this was something I could do pretty quickly. So thanks for stopping by. I appreciate you watching. You can leave a message if you want. I don't see any comments in the comment log here. If you have any, feel free. But that's about it. Both these bills, they look pretty good to me. I think SB 222 is a slam dunk. It's pretty straightforward. It's just about making sure. Oops, I pressed the wrong button there. It's about making sure that creating just a water assistance fund, just to make sure that people who don't have a lot of money, especially during a crisis, can pay their bills and keep their water on. And 223 modifies an existing law that already passed. So I think that one's pretty safe too. It just tries to close a loophole and tweak a couple other provisions that I think the author of the last bill thinks are a good idea. So it seemed pretty solid. Anyway, thanks for watching, and have a good rest of your evening.